The moment a conflict starts expanding, the real story isn't just on the battlefield, it's in the massive movement happening behind the scenes. As tensions rise and thousands of American troops are already positioned near Iran, a much larger operation begins to unfold. Across the United States, military bases shift instantly into high-speed logistics mode to prepare for a long campaign. What you're about to see is how an entire war machine starts moving before most people even realize what's happening. On the front lines, infantry and marine units were already deployed, but they couldn't sustain operations without heavy support behind them. They needed armored vehicles, artillery systems, and transport units to maintain pressure over time. That's where a large-scale sea lift operation became critical to the mission. Military rail yards across the country became the starting point for moving this massive equipment. At these rail yards, armored vehicles were driven carefully onto flatbed train cars lined up across long tracks. Tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, and heavy trucks moved up ramps one by one into position. Each vehicle was secured tightly with chains and locking systems to prevent movement during long-distance transport. The process was slow but precise, ensuring everything arrived safely at the next stage. At the same time, nearby airfields became active as attack helicopters were prepared for deployment. Apache helicopters were rolled out from hangars and their folded rotor blades were extended and locked into place. Once ready, the engines powered up and the aircraft lifted into the air, heading directly toward port locations. These helicopters would soon be loaded onto ships alongside the rest of the equipment. When the train convoys reached the ports, the scale of the operation became impossible to ignore. Massive staging areas were filled with rows of military vehicles stretching in every direction. Light transport vehicles, fuel tankers, rocket systems, and armored units stood ready in organized formations. The entire scene showed the sheer size of what it takes to support modern military operations. Among these vehicles were Humvees, armored personnel carriers, and heavily equipped combat trucks designed for various roles. Massive M1 Abrams tanks stood out, each weighing over 70 tons and built for direct combat. Bradley fighting vehicles, engineering units, and mobile command systems added to the growing lineup. Every machine had a specific role waiting for it once deployed overseas. Once organized, the vehicles began moving toward the ships docked at the port in carefully controlled columns. These ships were designed specifically for military transport, allowing vehicles to drive directly on board. Using large rear ramps, each vehicle entered under its own power and moved into assigned positions. The loading process required strict coordination to maintain order and efficiency. Inside the ships, space was extremely limited, making precise positioning absolutely necessary. Each vehicle was assigned a specific spot based on its weight and unloading priority at the destination. Heavy tanks were placed on lower decks for stability, while lighter vehicles were positioned above. Everything was planned in advance using detailed load maps before the first vehicle entered the ship. Drivers followed instructions from crew members using hand signals and radio communication to guide every movement. Vehicles were parked extremely close together, leaving only inches between them to maximize capacity. Every turn and adjustment had to be perfect to avoid damage. Even a small mistake could cause serious problems in such a tight environment. The loading process continued non-stop for 3 full days as crews worked in rotating shifts. During daylight, natural light filled the cargo areas, while at night, powerful lights illuminated the decks. There were no pauses, as the entire operation ran around the clock to meet deadlines. Speed and precision had to work together without compromise. Forklifts moved additional supplies such as spare parts, ammunition, and support equipment into the ship. Smaller items like tools, communication systems, and medical kits were packed into containers and stacked wherever space allowed. Every available area was used efficiently to carry as much as possible. Nothing important could be left behind in this operation. Once all vehicles were positioned, the securing phase began to prepare for ocean transport. Heavy steel chains were attached from the ship's deck to each vehicle's frame. Multiple chains were used on every vehicle to prevent any movement during rough sea conditions. Each chain was tightened and locked into place to ensure maximum stability. After days of continuous work, the ships were finally loaded and ready to depart. The ramps were raised and sealed, and mooring lines were released from the docks. Tugboats guided the massive vessels out into open water, where they formed into a convoy. Soon after, they set course toward the Middle East to deliver their cargo. Escort ships moved into position around the transport vessels to provide protection during the journey. The mission was clear: deliver the equipment safely to support forces already on the ground. This marked the expansion of a much larger military effort. The buildup was now fully underway. Meanwhile, near the border, forces already deployed continued active operations using the equipment available to them. A rocket artillery unit received coordinates for a target and prepared to fire immediately. The launcher was positioned behind cover, waiting for the final command. The crew remained ready for action. Once the order was given, rockets launched one after another with powerful bursts of flame and smoke. Each launch shook the vehicle as the rockets sped toward distant targets. The projectiles carried payloads designed to destroy vehicles and equipment in the open. Within seconds, the mission was complete. Immediately after firing, the crew moved quickly to leave the area and avoid detection. The launcher was lowered into travel position, and the vehicle drove away from the firing site. Mobility was critical in avoiding counterattacks. Staying in one place for too long could be dangerous. At another forward position, a reconnaissance team prepared a drone for a surveillance mission. The unmanned aircraft was removed from its case and assembled quickly on open ground. Wings were attached, systems were checked, and the camera feed was tested. Every detail was verified before launch. Once ready, the drone lifted into the air and quickly gained altitude over the terrain. It began transmitting live video back to the operators monitoring from the ground. The team scanned the landscape for any signs of movement or activity. Roads, ridgelines, and open areas were all carefully observed. This real-time intelligence helped forces track activity and plan their next steps more effectively. The drone provided a clear view of the environment, reducing uncertainty on the battlefield. Every piece of information gathered could influence upcoming decisions. This combination of surveillance and firepower kept the operation moving forward. This is how modern military operations expand when a conflict grows beyond a single location. It's not just about soldiers in the field, but the massive system supporting them from behind. Every vehicle, every ship, and every piece of equipment plays a role in the bigger picture. When everything moves together, the scale of the operation becomes clear. If you found this breakdown valuable and want more behind-the-scenes insights into real military operations, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below and tell me what part surprised you the most. Your support helps bring more detailed content like this to you. Stay tuned for the next video where we explore even more real-world operations.